A CNN analysis of videos and satellite imagery found that 16 cemeteries have been damaged or destroyed by the Israeli military since it launched its ground offensive. CNN witnessed firsthand the results of Israel's bulldozing of graveyards while embedded with Israeli forces last week. The armored personnel carrier CNN was traveling in drove right through this cemetery in Al Bureij on a freshly bulldozed dirt road.
A CNN investigation reveals that since Israeli forces began their military operations in Gaza, they've bulldozed through Palestinian grave sites, badly damaging cemeteries, and this week digging up dead bodies as part of their operations. Here's more from their report.
More than a dozen cemeteries like this one in Jabalia, desecrated by the Israeli military. Gravestones destroyed, soil upturned, tread marks leaving little left for the living to honor their dead. This is that same graveyard before the war. 1 month later, a series of tread marks can be seen on the northwestern edge. In some cases, like this cemetery in the Shujaiya refugee camp, Israeli bulldozers turned cemeteries into military outposts, parking armored vehicles behind freshly raised berms. The damage is often deliberate and progressive. Over 2 weeks in December, the military bulldozed more and more of this cemetery east of Khan Yunis. And then there's this. Tombs opened at a cemetery in Khan Yunis this week. Bodies removed from their graves.
The IDF has acknowledged this week that they exhumed dead Gazans from the cemeteries, but said they did it as part of its search for the bodies of Israeli hostages. The hostage identification process, conducted at a secure and alternative location, ensures optimal professional conditions and respect for the deceased, an IDF spokesperson told CNN, adding that bodies that are determined not to be those of hostages are returned with dignity and respect. That, however, is not what CNN found. Their probe revealed that shrouded bodies are being left sticking out of the soil. Palestinians are found searching through the ravaged cemeteries trying to identify the bodies. The IDF told CNN that when critical intelligence or operational information is received, it conducts precise hostage rescue operations in the specific locations where information indicates that the bodies of hostages may be located. If not for Hamas's reprehensible decision to take Israeli men, women, children, and babies hostages, the need for such searches for our hostages would not exist, the IDF added. The Israeli government also claimed that the cemeteries were being used by Hamas for military purposes to justify their actions, which CNN couldn't confirm or deny. Take a look at this clip.
An IDF spokesman could not account for the damage to the 16 cemeteries identified by CNN, but said that in some cases there is no other choice, providing this photo of what it says is a Hamas rocket launcher at a cemetery in Gaza. CNN could not independently verify where it was taken.
There's a little bit more to this story with regards to international law, but that's a good baseline. Cenk?
Yeah, so first of all, great report by CNN. This is the kind of reporting I've always wanted from CNN. So Jeremy Diamond, brilliant job, appreciate it. And he gave both sides there, and as you just saw there. So guys, there's two other things you should know. First of all, the IDF excuse of, oh, well, golly gee, we were looking for hostages' bodies. Well, why would they necessarily be in graves? They could be anywhere. But wait, if you think, well, maybe graves are a logical place to put them, they left all of the Jewish and Christian graves and cemeteries alone. They didn't touch them. So wait, are you looking for the bodies or you're not looking for the bodies? Because if you were looking for the deceased bodies and you thought graves were the most logical place, you'd look in all the graves. Oh, so you didn't want to desecrate the Jewish and Christian graves. So that means you definitely wanted to desecrate the Muslim graves, or at least you didn't mind. And guys, this is not subtle. This is one of the, look, for me personally, I don't really care about the dead. I care about the living. And so I'm not a person who gets super emotional about, what happens to the remains, etc. And I know a lot of people are, but mainly this is spitting in the face of their ancestors. And that was the point of this. Like, we can do anything we want to you. We could humiliate you in any way, shape, or form, and there's nothing you can do about it. Well, congratulations, right-wing government of Israel. Mission accomplished. You have desecrated it and humiliated them in every way imaginable. You know what this is? This feels like we're all watching the bully in the school sit on top of the skinny kid and just punch him in the face about 20 times. And you could say, hey, the skinny kid actually hit him first. Okay. And then he sat on top of him, and on the 20th time that he punched him in the face, we're all sick to our stomach. Please, we got it. You already annihilated them on the first 4 punches. Okay, but now, do we think that this is going to make Israel safer? No. Is that what this is about? Do you know what people are going to do when they think that you desecrated the graves of their ancestors? And maybe their dads and moms that just passed away. They're going to hate you forever. And then you're going to say, golly gee, I don't know why they hate me. Oh, out of nowhere, they just decided to hate me. And then that, whether you like it or not, that's going to lead to more violence, more conflict, more war. So if you're trying to get to peace, this is the absolute worst way to do it. Ramesh.
Yeah, so just a few quick points. I mean, first of all, what I said in our earlier segment, whenever I see these stories, which there seem to be a litany of different types of stories like this that come up every day, just sort of ones that are really, how do you just say, they just make me shudder. I just feel a sense of powerlessness, and that's a terrible feeling when you're a U.S. citizen and you're a citizen of a nation that is probably the most powerful nation, if not the only. I mean, the UK as well. That is really backing what's occurring. So it's sort of like it all gets to the bigger question of why the hell Biden is continuing to do this and what is his vision, and do this meaning support this indiscriminately, and so that's one. Two is this also lends to the question of why have they not been able to free hostages yet, or many hostages, or any hostages? Have they been able to, like in the IDF, in its sort of actions taken in Gaza, why have they not been able to locate or free the hostages? I mean, they're using artificial intelligence technologies to try to predict locations of Hamas commanders, but I wonder if all of this is sort of a kind of a faulty campaign on even a practical level for Israel. So that's another question I want to ask. And then I think most of all, I want your thoughts on this, of course, Ben, which is, I think all of this and all of these stories, as you were just saying, Cenk, further marginalizes Israel from the global community. Not dissimilar to, I believe, what occurred in South Africa under apartheid, which is why I think it's appropriate that South Africa is leading the International Court of Justice case. And I don't think this is going to help Israel or the Jewish people, who obviously have a legitimate fear of collective annihilation, including relative to Hamas, but also, of course, in the past. But I don't think the fear of collective annihilation should lead to actions such as this. And I just remember also, the Irish Republican Army became a civil society organization after finally there was peace settled in Ireland. And I think that's what all of us want. At the minimum, a permanent ceasefire tied to the release of hostages.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I want to firstly make very clear that I do not defend this in any respect. It doesn't even sound like the IDF has good justification for a lot of this. So to whatever degree there is no justification for most of these, I condemn it in the strongest terms. And I hope the people that committed these acts are held to the highest account, and if there are war crimes found to be done in many of these instances, they should be prosecuted for those war crimes. I don't ever defend that. There's a little bit of a logic jump, I think, in what you said, Cenk, just about how they left all of the Jewish and Christian cemeteries. It's not what the story said. It said there was one Jewish cemetery, a Jewish and Christian cemetery that was left intact. It didn't mention many. I don't know the nature of all of them. But
all 16 that were destroyed were Muslim cemeteries.
I don't know if it said that, but I assume that is true. But as to exhuming the bodies, you're saying they don't mind desecrating. For certain, the bodies that were taken out were ones that were just recently buried. So in the ones,
no, I didn't mean that.
So in the ones, yeah, right. So in the ones that maybe the Jewish Christian cemetery did not have any recently buried bodies, which is maybe why no bodies were exhumed there. Again, that is not justifying this. This is, there are in war very limited cases in which, because normally it is an international war crime to involve a cemetery or a holy site like that, except when it becomes a military objective. It can be a legitimate site, and like you saw a photo of rocket launcher, obviously that's desecrating its own grave site as well. And there are instances where they are trying to, let's say they have to go and take those bodies out to see if they're hostages, because you're dealing with monstrous terrorists who are burying hostages and not telling the Israelis or the world community that they killed them. They do have to find it out. If they're temporarily setting an outpost up there in that place when they're vulnerable from all sides, you can sort of understand a temporary outpost. I do not understand going through them. Of course, there are also bombs and improvised explosive devices that are on real roads. So I don't know the reason for it. It sounds terrible. It does not look good whatsoever. To your larger questions, Ramesh, again, the reason I think why it's not just the UK and the US, but also largely the European Union and many other nations that are defending what Israel's doing, like you said, it's because there is a real reason for it. Nobody is saying this isn't brutal and terrible, but we are saying that, as you acknowledge, there is an existential threat that continues forever and ever and ever. And as soon as that existential threat is removed, there can be the prospect of peace. I pray there's peace tomorrow. I pray that Cenk's idea of empowering the Palestinian Authority and getting so much of the world community behind them can actually give them legitimacy they don't currently have, and then they can force with the force of all of those militaries collectively and with the UN and whatever organization can do it, can come and help say, Hamas, you are going to be stepped down of power or removed from power. This is the new leaders in the territories, and they will make a peace plan. And if it's possible to make a peace plan with them not being the controlling force, but being a controlling force that gives them that authority, that's amazing. It's a great idea. I hope that can happen, absolutely. That would be incredible. But why the US keeps backing it is because they still believe that while individual tactics are certainly can be condemned on a case-by-case basis, the overall mission of this war is to stop the reign of terror of terrorist groups that pledge to annihilate the Jewish people. And any people on earth would need to do what they can to remove that threat. And you can just take evidence of past peace deals being offered, and you can take evidence of the fact that these attacks are on a large scale are never initiated by Israel. No doubt they respond very large. They're trying to remove this threat. There's criticisms to be made, but as soon as a group like the PA can be put in charge and can pledge to no longer eliminate Israelis, peace can be found.
Okay, I'll be super fast. So, you know, if you look at United Nations General Assembly resolutions as well as Security Council resolutions, we see a disproportionate weight on everybody calling for a permanent ceasefire, right? I mean, not everybody, but the vast majority of nations around the world. I just want you to consider the possibility that the only way peace can really occur is by actually Israel stopping what it's doing and actually remove Gaza from the situation of apartheid that it's in, and really create a lasting two-state solution of peace. And if that's not going to happen, this is just going to keep occurring again and again and again, right?
I don't believe it's apartheid, but it just can't do so in the face. It can't do so in the face of constant threats is the big point.
If you enjoyed this video, that's because of our members. They make us independent, they make us strong, and they make us honest. Become a member today by hitting the join button below.